Hi, I'm Jamie, your host for season 2 of the Not Going to Uni podcast, where we talk all things emerging talent and alternative routes to university. In today's episode, we talk to Harry, founder and producer of the Ignition podcast. Hi, Harry. Welcome to the NGTU podcast. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks, Jamie. How are you?
Yeah, good to see you, mate. Good to see you. I'm all good. Right, cool. Welcome on. If you want to give an introduction to our audience, first of all.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Harry Phypers. I run the Ignition podcast mainly, but I do a few bits outside of that. So I have a few little side projects I'm running along with that. But my main thing is helping people, that have a passion for cars, a love for cars, get into the industry their own way, like I have. But yeah, that's the kind of mainly what I focus on, and what I spend most of my time doing is working in an industry that I very much love and have a passion for.
Amazing, thanks, Harry. Yeah, and like I said, great to have you on. Let's take a rewind then and give our audience an overview and I guess an introduction to you and how you've got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I guess it started probably when I was about 6 or 7. Unfortunately, my granddad passed, but what that led me to do was be able to go karting. So they gave my family much money. I think my brother started doing more footballing, my sister started doing more dancing, and I, well, with the love for cars, was like, okay, cool. How fast can I go in a straight line? Not very fast around a corner. I kept crashing, but yeah, that's kind of where it started. Was with go karting, and then obviously growing up, I was quite creative as a kid, drawing cars, create my own design, my own cars. So kind of from like a very young age, I kind of knew what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. But yeah, so it's always been cars. It's always been, having a love for cars. But it's what I do now kind of came out of blue. It came out of lockdown and leaving school, not really knowing what I could do with this passion. School wasn't very helpful, so it kind of led me to look my own path, do my own research, and yeah, I'm very thankful for that lockdown. Actually, people were kind of poo-poo it, but it taught me
Sparks a lot of things. Sparks a lot of things for sure.
Sparks a lot of things, yeah.
So tell our audience then, like, what is it that you do now? Obviously, I'm very aware. Like we had our initial introduction in Starbucks, didn't we, around kind of how you get involved with NGT and the ambassador program, which we'll get onto later in the episode. But I guess what is it that you do now, Harry? And just give our audience a bit of a background as to what your mission is with what you're doing.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I run the Ignition podcast, and my whole strapline for that is the podcast that shows you what's possible with your passion. So speaking to CEOs, racing drivers, content creators, entrepreneurs, anyone in the space that loves cars, has a mission for themselves. And it really just started off, like I said, curious about what's out there. So I left school wanting to be an engineer, did A-levels as you do, kind of was like, cool, what's next? And the course I wanted to do at JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, they pulled it. So it was a mechanical engineering degree, apprentice. Went to go apply for it. And when I went to go back onto the site, it'd been pulled. It was just this software engineer. I have no interest in computers, in cars. I hate them. In fact, I think you should take them out of them. But yeah, so it started from that, not really knowing, and kind of going, right, so the Ignition podcast, speak to as many people in the industry as possible, find out what they're doing, how they got to where they are today, what I can learn from them. And off the back of that, it's led to stuff like I go into schools and I speak to students, and I kind of take that format. People have their own business, people that are an apprentice, and someone that went to uni, and kind of going to schools and kind of show you actually what this is their story. They do a little bit. They kind of say, right, this is what I did. This is what I knew at the time. Looking back, this is what I changed. So that's what's next. That's my Q&A panel chat, going to schools, help them. Because I don't know about you, but I at school just got lectured by old white men about doing drugs and making sure I went to university because the most important thing in the world. And I switched off in the first 15 minutes. I didn't like that at all. So that was my aim with that. And another thing I do is I throw networking events for business owners and entrepreneurs that love cars. So if you have an Aston Martin, a Ferrari, you have a Toyota, I don't care. You've got a passion for cars, you own a business. I kind of run events to help, connect those people together. So yeah, those are the kind of main 3 things I'm doing at the moment.
Amazing. So it sounds like there's been an automotive spark in you since kind of the early days, right? Like you've obviously started go-karting from a really young age, and that's obviously led to where you are today. But did you always kind of know when you were kind of leaving school and you're obviously applying for these opportunities that automotive was going to be the industry that you wanted to focus on for the rest of your career?
Yeah, I guess I did. I guess I'm very creative growing up, so I was always drawing, always experimenting with that sort of stuff. And I love cars, and again, I was that kid that could name you what car it was from the taillights, or, you know, playing that game on the motorway, ABC car, like, you know, what's coming out, Skoda, you know, all that sort of stuff. Yes, it was, I guess it's always been cars. It's always been anything with four wheels and engine, that makes noise, that goes fast. Yeah. I'm interested, you about Jimmy, actually. Did you know what you wanted to do? Like, did you think you'd be doing this now?
No, definitely not. I think, I mean, it's an interesting one chatting to you, because I've always had a passion for cars, and I worked at a JLR dealership at the weekends during sixth form. And I always thought that was going to be my path. I was going to go there and potentially be like more slightly a car salesman. I wasn't too clued up or interested on the mechanical side, and was leaving school and basically had an offer there to go and be like a trainee sales associate, to sell cars. And the guys in the dealership were obviously asking me about my studies and what I was interested in, and the time I was doing business and IT, and they were like, go and follow that. Like, cars are great. Like, we all love cars, but at the same time, when you're working within a dealership, they do kind of become just a thing. Like, it does destroy a little bit of the passion. And I was never a fan of that. Like, I wanted cars to always be something that, like, I aspire to have and not necessarily work with. And obviously going through different pathways to try and get to that end goal, which is obviously to have, to be in a position to buy like an exotic or a luxury sports or supercar, whatever that might be. So yeah, my path definitely changed, because I always thought that was going to be it. And then obviously I went into IT, and then I've diverted again, and now I'm in kind of the early career space. So I think, yeah, looking back, I think cars, that was a good decision to do. I think cars were, again, always something that I wanted to remain a passion. And I mean, it's great to see that you've kind of turned that passion into something that you can as a career, because I think that's quite hard. I think a lot of people go and do their careers that have sparked from a passion, and that passion has ended up being destroyed because it's put too much pressure on them to obviously pay the bills and make a career out of it. So that was always my struggle with the automotive industry. I just wanted it to be something that was still accessible to me in the future, and label it as kind of a successful byproduct of potentially running my own business or whatever. So yeah, I mean, how do you make sure, like, it sounds like it's been a passion of yours for years, but have you ever had concerns like on the same level?
Yeah, no, definitely. I've not always been doing this. Like, I didn't wake up after school and say I'd do a podcast. I've worked as a waiter. I did sales for alarm company. I won't name the company because they're not a great one. But no, yeah, I've had tons of jobs. And my problem with, you know, work when I was, you know, early teens was that was that, you know, like I hated working. I hated doing what I was doing. I hated working with someone else. It laborious, and, you know, cars were my escape. And I kind of kept the same attitude as you. As I don't want to work with cars because I don't want them to ruin my passion. But actually, if I change the script and I go, right, okay, cool, cars are my reward, right? Cars are my reward for what I'm doing and putting hard work in. So regardless if, you know, cars are my job, they're also my reward. And so that, you know, it's easy to blur the line then, and you can always enjoy it, because, you know, the harder I work, the better people I get to meet, the better people I get to meet. I might get to drive their car, or I get to go to cool car shows and interview cool people, or I get to do deals with sponsors that have cool cars and let me, you know, look at the cars, talk about the cars. Yeah. And I think it's how you look at it. I think if you love, for instance, I don't know, if you love horses, do you work with horses? Yes, because you love them. I think it's the same thing for me. Like, I don't wash my car, but, you know, like, people look after horses. Or, you know, if you love IT, you know, like yourself, like, passionate about IT, but do you stop using computers? No, probably not, because you know how to use it and it's easy to use. So yeah, no, I was, like, started off conflicted, but definitely found, you know, a way to, I guess, make the best of a bad situation.
So through all those jobs that you've had, and obviously you've navigated your way to now being a podcast owner with the Ignition podcast, and obviously the club that you have to obviously host different people at. So what does a typical day in the life of Harry look like at the moment?
Well, I'm not completely out of the blue. I do still work part-time as a waiter. So my weekends, I get paid to work, which is always fun. So I'm working 7 days a week. I try and give myself a day off, but typical day, if I'm not working at the restaurant, would literally be wake up, meeting, you know, kind of schedule something that I find interesting. So if there's a cool guest, I'll have like a 15-20 minute chat with them, kind of find out what they're about, kind of find out, are you the kind of person that's going to fit well in the podcast? And then after that, it's emails, just kind of going through admin, making sure that, if I've got a guest booked in, that they've got all the questions I'm going to ask them. If it's if it's a sponsor of the podcast, have they got the ad that I sent off to them? If it's production, am I editing the right content? How's the content? And it's so much different stuff you have to think about and keep like constant notes and refreshing yourself. But yeah, a typical day can look from meetings, editing, to going to a car show, reviewing a car. Like, it's kind of like, that's the great thing about having your own time, is you get to choose what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it could be anything from reviewing a car to doing emails. It doesn't really matter. It's just, I love the freedom, the flexibility. But on the other hand, it can feel like you're being dragged. It can feel like you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. You're putting a lot of pressure on to do your own things, to make sure that you're progressing. And social media is a huge part of that. Like, I post on social media. I try and stay off social media, because as soon as I start scrolling, and like people like our age will know, like, doom scrolling is a bad thing. You sit in TikTok at
100%.
11:30 at night. All of a sudden it's 1:30 in the morning, and like, where did my time go?
Yeah.
So yeah, I try and stay off it. But yeah, I think if you use it correctly, it's a great motivation and a great marketing tool as well.
And where do you want to take, obviously, the business like this year? Like, what's the kind of general plan for you?
General plan of the podcast is to go in person. So do this, but you'll be sitting across from me at a table in a studio around the UK, mainly London. But yeah, have real conversations with real people in real places, not over internet. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is great. You can get the gist of it, but there's something interesting about being in a room with someone, as you'll know, like from meeting people at school or having a chat at work. That if you did that over a Zoom, it's lifeless. You can't really understand what the person's thinking, what they're saying. The body language is all off.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the main one. Another thing is bigger sponsors, so title sponsors, taking it to another level, generating more income, maybe even sponsoring a e-racing team. It's something that I'm looking at doing, is getting the name out of motorsport, but virtual motorsport. And I think, like, the way the podcast is going, it's for that, early careers, sort of space. And if I can find people that are sim racing, people that watch esports, people that watch or participate in motorsports online, that's a great place for my brand to be. So that's a big thing I'm working on, is getting in there. And I guess with the events as well, I want to be hosting events for, supercars, hypercars, mixing with that, clientele, that group of people.
So anyone that wants to be a part of that club, like you mentioned, kind of, as long as they have a passion for cars, like, they can obviously kind of come along. Like, is there any other, if anyone's watching or listening to this and they have got that passion for cars and they want to kind of meet other people, like, where do they go to find more information about that?
So for now, if you just send me an email, it's harry@ignitionpod.com. I can send you some stuff out. I'm working on a website, working on getting a calendar of events out for this year. But yeah, like I say, it's best thing to do would be contact me or go on Instagram. It's the.ignition.podcast. And you can either DM me there, or you can find the events on that Instagram page as well. But yeah, that's kind of the best place to find them.
So anyone that's maybe in a similar boat to you, that's maybe obviously a couple of years younger, they've got the same sort of passions as you, and that they may have started at a young age like yourself, or it might have just kind of sparked in the next couple of years. I mean, careers in automotive, I think, they're quite varied. Like you said, there's obviously roles in head offices where you can go and do like the engineering side. There's a side being hands-on, fixing cars, selling cars. Like, knowing what you know now, what kind of advice would you give to people a couple of years ago, if that was yourself, going into the industry?
Yeah, start a podcast. You can be as nosy as you want. You can ask people anything, and you can kind of make the most of it. Generally would be my biggest piece of advice. If you don't want to start a podcast and you're a bit camera shy, maybe just start off on LinkedIn. That's where I started. It's where everyone is anyway. People are always trying to progress their own careers through that place, or meeting people at car shows and just going, hey, look, I know you're busy. Appreciate their time. Appreciate that they've got their own schedule. Be like, is it any chance we can grab 10, 15, 20 minutes over Zoom or in person at a coffee shop, whatever's more convenient for that person, because they're giving you value. So make sure you prioritize that person first. It would be just find a place where those kind of people work, hang out, and figure out how they did it. Ask them as many questions as you can in that 10, 15 minutes. And if you don't like the sound of what they're saying, don't chase it. If you don't like where they are, don't chase it. If you do, fantastic. You've just found a cheat sheet to enable you to get where you need to be in the next 5 years.
Yeah. No, amazing, cool. Rewinding then back to your kind of schooling days, and you were kind of, you went to sixth form, right? Did you go sixth form, or did you leave at 16?
Yeah, I went to sixth form. Scraped in. Yeah, drag kicking and screaming. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you regret that decision going to sixth form, or are you glad you went?
Do I regret it? No, I guess because it's the information I had available to me at the time.
Yeah.
Like I was fortunate enough to go to a grammar school anyway. Like my whole education path is, I'm not great at exams, so I scraped my 11 plus. I had to appeal to get into a grammar school, and then at the grammar school, I got to appeal again to do A levels. So it's been a fight. I guess I've been fighting against, my, I wouldn't say ability to not do exams, but I'm dyslexic, so it was a struggle for me. But no, I don't regret it at all. It taught me so much about, I guess at the time it was maths, DT, and graphic design. So if I didn't do those things, I wouldn't have access to the resources the school had and make the most of those. So I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't do that. So no, I guess I don't.
And how did you find that transition? Were you someone that was quite nervous to go into like the workplace, or were you kind of thriving for it and looking forward to it? Like,
yeah, I guess I kind of had a job anyway. So as soon as I turned 16, I got myself a job. And so when it came out leaving school, I kind of went, I guess because I went full time there. Like again, that degree apprenticeship at JLR didn't happen. I then spent some time, trying to find a course that would do that. I found this place called Tuna School in America. It's run by Hennessy. That's a great place. But it was 14 grand for 14 weeks. So I got a full-time job straight away. I was earning, I think it was 23 grand, being full-time as a waiter. Like I've not really left hospitality. I've kind of bounced around. But no, yeah, it was leave, save up, go to America, and then COVID hits, and you're like, oh crap, I've just saved up all this money.
So where did that money go, Harry?
Oh, I went on a car, Jamie. It's where
There's worse things for it to go on.
There is, to be fair. I guess I also had this go-kart sitting and rotting in my garage. So I taught myself skills like welding. I taught myself like rebuilding engines. I taught myself how suspension geometry works, how you can manipulate a car, how steering works. Because I was just blatantly nosy and interested about it. I was like, if I can't learn it at school, I can't learn it at university, I can't learn it in a degree apprenticeship, I'll teach myself. And so I guess that's why I love lockdown so much. So I learned so much about go-karting, my former passion. And then I translated that to a Gen 1 Mini Cooper S, which I modified and then blew up twice. So, you learn, you have fun, and then you kind of move on, I guess.
So looking back at that, when you were kind of destined to go to America, that was kind of the next step. You're going to go there, and obviously COVID hit. Like, looking back now, is that something that you not obviously regret because you didn't have a choice? That was something you're going to go and do. But if you had that time again and the same money again, would you choose to do that knowing what you know now, or would you carry on the current path that you're on?
I don't know. I guess I would have given it a go, because at that point, what they're offering, what they're doing is really cool. It was a chance to work under one of the biggest names in aftermarket tuning in America and in the world. I mean, yeah, 100%. I would have jumped at the chance. Yeah.
Is that going to happen? Are you still keen for that to happen, or?
Oh, do you know what? 14 grand's a lot of money. And to be fair, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I had the money. I'd do it. Yeah. So it's something, I'm going to America anyway. Something's on the bucket list. SEMA. Maybe doing some podcasts in America then would be the next best thing. What about you, Jim?
We just need to get a bit older, don't we? So we can hire those exotic cars in America. That's as soon as I'm at that age. I know you can pay. There's certain cars you can get access to, like for obviously like a surcharge and stuff. But I think 25 is like the core age where you can start hiring the big guns, and like that for me is just like bucket list, like probably top 3. Like go across America in like a old like muscle car or something or other. That's definitely up there, 100%.
Road trips are mad. I went to Germany back in one day. That was a pain in the ass. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. Or do, because I took some mates with us. We had a laugh. We went around the track, went around the Nürburgring, came back again, and it was like the best 24 hours I think I've had in a while. But it was knackering. Like you're doing 8 hours driving around the track and back again. Yeah, no, I mean it was hard.
Yeah, no, driving's like something that I've always I've always like dreamed of obviously not becoming the next like Lewis Hamilton or anything like that, because I was never. I do like wish I was kind of do wish I started obviously younger with that sort of stuff and like got into a car. Obviously, biggest thing is expensive. Like to do something like that at a young age. Like I was talking to one of my previous bosses a couple of weeks ago, and that was about kind of getting his son into like the Ginetta racing series and stuff like that. And like that is just like cool. That's just another different level. Like going down to Brands Hatch is really cool. I like going down there and seeing lots of different stuff happen, particularly with like these small teams that are obviously like competing in like kind of competitive leagues. It's really cool for those see those guys doing that. But yeah, like going to America, a road trip, 100% is on the bucket list. And yeah, just obviously long-term goal is striving to have some cool cars in the garage when I'm older. But for now, it's hard. There's two perspectives, isn't there, around having nice cars at a young age. Like if you're obviously living at home and you've got kind of limited like outgoings and stuff like that, a lot of young people go out and get like a flashy car. And I have done it. Like I did it. I went out and bought myself a M140i, like amazing car, like so cool. And then I got rid of it because it was just too expensive to run. And then I had like a Fiesta ST, and like that was like me like holding on to like something where I had a cool enough car, but it not be like ridiculously expensive for me to sit there and be like, this is like breaking the bank. And then prices went up from COVID and stuff, got rid of it, and now I just have like a boring car, I'd say. And I'm always saying like I want to get another one, but it's like, is it worth it? So yeah, cars are a constant like whirlwind in my head around should I upgrade or should I just like stay put? Which I think a lot of young people go through. Like I said, you're in that weird period where you have got kind of the potential extra money if you're not doing anything like creating your own business. And we all know all your money goes into that when you've got a passion to start something of your own, and you don't spend any unnecessary cash on stuff that you realistically don't need, and you make do with things. So I think I'm in that mindset now. Like I'd much rather create stuff, like get stuff going, and then look back in 10 years and potentially have the cars that we aspire to have now, and be in a much better position for it. So
yeah, have you got any projects outside of this then? Are you working on anything outside of it? Can you say? I don't want to get you fired.
Yeah, a few separate projects that will be I can't say too much yet. Yeah. Yeah, I can't say anything yet, but what I would say is like anyone who wants to do anything on the side, like, and this is why we kind of started the Side Hustle Network, is that we wanted to connect other people that were creating side hustles and giving them access. The biggest thing is access to other people that have been there and done it and succeeded and have got those lessons that you can't necessarily Google and find. It's those real life experiences that you need to kind of dig from people and learn from. And I think that's why having a community of people, like why LinkedIn's so important, just to slide into people DMs and ask them for advice on things, because you just can't compare until you've heard it out of the horse's mouth. So yeah, I think that's really, really important. So yeah, I'm working on a few other bits because I think that's just a natural trait for me to be creating stuff. And I think everyone has a different time. I think that's what everyone needs to understand, is that I've got people around me that are creating businesses and they're taking off and it's doing amazing. And you look at them and go, am I behind? No, they're just at a different timestamp in their path. You might create something when you're 25, you might create something when you're 40. Like it doesn't really matter. You just do what's right for you and crack on with the stuff in the interim. So yeah, it's hopefully 2024 is going to be a cool year.
No, there's a great quote which is like, don't compare your chapter 1 to someone's chapter 25. It's like, you can't, your experience, your upbringing, your collective knowledge as well is completely different to Joe or Mary's 3 years of working under their dad, who was a business investor, or someone just started a shoe company but their aunt is heavily invested in the fashion industry. Like you can't compare it at all. Like everyone's unique.
And on the outside, you don't see that. Like unless you know someone's ins and outs, like unless you're their really close friends, their family, like social media only tells you one part of it, and doesn't tell you. Like I'm repeating stuff that probably everyone knows by now. Like we're in 2024, but it's don't look at some stuff on socials and assume that that's their everyday life. Like that's probably the best 1% of their year. Like the other 99% is through challenges, through obviously challenges with mental health. Like you don't know what the challenges are, but you can't compare that unless you know the full story. So I think always take things that you see, especially success, with a pinch of salt, because you have to. Otherwise, you'll sit there, bring yourself down that you're not where you're supposed to be, and everything doesn't make sense. And what you're building is just, it's just not there. But like, I guess to loop back to what we're kind of discussing around like networking and the power of that, and obviously you run the club where you invite people down. Like how do you balance networking first of all with kind of the day job? Because I see it as like a separate part, because I think it takes so much energy and time to invest into networking and make sure you're constantly going out meeting people, whether that's drinks, events, or whatever. Like it can be quite draining, can't it?
It can be. And like, even for anything from recording a podcast, which I would still consider networking, to going out and doing events, like, you know, from the side hustle, like either you're the kind of person who gets more energy off of speaking to people, or you're the kind of person that gets drained. And I think that's completely up to like your mindset about it. If you're going in there thinking, oh, I've got to speak to 15 people. Oh, John's going to be there from last week. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. He doesn't shut up. It's going to be, you're going to hate it. But if you go in there, you know, going, actually, I'm going to meet some amazing people. I'm going to learn something I didn't know beforehand. I might make a business connection. You might make some money off of it. And I try and make my events as relaxed and as enjoyable as possible. For instance, you know, I have a couple of people up, they talk about their business for 5 minutes. That gives them some promotion. It gives them a time to, you know, explain why they're doing it, why they love cars, doing their life, and what they can impact your life for. And it's stuff from that, or going go-karting. I've got go-karting hopefully planned later this year. You know, that competitive streak, it's all in us, you know, regardless if you want to admit it or not. And making networking as fun, as relaxed as possible. Because, I mean, I'm sure you'll agree, you've been to networking events and it's a cold office. Like, you know, people are huddled around their little cliques because they go to this event quite a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, the coffee's, you know, okay, the biscuits are stale. And it's like, why am I here? And some of them are like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But why are you here at 6 o'clock in the morning? No one's that. If you have to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning, you really, really need to change what you're doing, because you shouldn't have to get up at the break of dawn to go and talk to some people. You should be able to do it when you want, or, you know, if you can, have a business that supports you to go and do that. Because that's effectively, you know, if you're working as a salesman, if you're working as a marketer, or anyone really that's, you know, a service people business, you can go and talk to some more people, get your brand out, get your works brand out, and help you make your life easier and actually help the business as well. So yeah, events, make them as easy as possible, and just have fun. Don't put too much pressure on it.
And if I was someone in your shoes who's looking to create something similar, and what's the kind of advice to get your brand out there? Like it's hard organically, right? Just to get organic traffic and an audience to that. But what would be kind of your advice to anyone who's looking or wanting to start something along these lines? It doesn't have to necessarily be automotive, can be a podcast in a different industry or whatever. Like what's your advice for that?
Yeah, someone very smart taught me that it's almost like a framework to it. So take that idea you got in your head. So let's say you're thinking of, I don't know, starting it's going to sound really boring, a waste management service, right? Okay, cool. You've never worked in waste management before. Who do you know, or who can you reach out to again that has done it? So you talk to them, right? What does John from Waste Management Company know about waste management? What would he recommend? Because he's the industry leader in his sector, in his like, you know, if you live in Kent, speak to him. If he manages waste in Kent, he is the industry expert. Again, ask him questions, find out what he knows, how he started, what to do and what not to do. Also, he might not speak to you because you're competition. So, you know, be careful who you ask and what you're asking. But actually, you know, if someone's, you know, got a big piece of the pie, they're not going to be worried about giving 1%, 2% about that away. So yeah, find someone that's an industry expert that's near you or close to you in what you're doing. Ask them a bunch of questions. I did the same thing. I went on LinkedIn and just had a couple of video calls with a couple of people that run networking businesses, for instance. I did the same thing with podcasts. I asked a couple of people who did podcasts, how they started, what equipment they used. I record those interviews or those calls. And what was really cool about obviously AI this year has been fantastic, because what I did is I recorded the episode, got a transcript, put it into ChatGPT, and asked ChatGPT to action me 5 steps. Like, here's all the information. Here's where I'm at. Can you give me the 5 most important things to do for me to get to X? Did that, and then went, cool, right, so I need a location. I need, for instance, the events. I need location. I need people to come to the event. I need music, possibly food, and I need some kind of icebreaker or event. And I kind of went, cool. And then I did that. And then looked at the next thing was, okay, who's coming? When is it? Where is it? And it was just like a bunch of logical steps helping AI cut down on, that bulk of information, and then going, cool, right. And it applies the waste thing again, doesn't it? It applies to waste management. Okay, do I need trucks? Do I need a van? Do I need, who do I need to take the waste? Where do I need to take the waste? Is there, services I need to use? Is there a license I need to get? Same thing with podcasting. Where do I need to put it? Who's going to listen? You figure out all that kind of stuff and you just do it. Don't think too hard about it. And just kind of, because I had a massive problem with failure for quite a while. I was paralyzed of rejection. And if anyone told me not to do something, I wouldn't do it because I was scared that it wouldn't work. And actually, that's the worst place to be, because like you said earlier, these people have got all this experience. Ask them. One thing they're not going to tell you is how many times they've failed. They're just going to tell you all the fun parts. And like you say, I failed 3 or 4 times in my own career before I found something that I'd like to do. I couldn't go to JLR. I couldn't get the money. COVID happened, but actually, I could have saved the money up, not spent it on a car. Who knows when, but I could have gone into last year. I didn't. Again, so don't be afraid to fail. Ask industry experts, action items, and just do it. Because if you sit here...
And don't be too harsh on yourself around the decisions that you've made in the past. I think a lot of us get caught up in the decisions that we've made, and we look at it maybe 2 years later down the line, more informed on the topic, and you look at it and go, I'm such an idiot, why did I do that? But actually, that's one of the biggest lessons that you've learned in your life so far.
Yeah, hindsight's 20/20, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite clear when you look back.
So I want to jump into the topic of being an NG2 ambassador, because I think it's interesting in this example, because you are someone who obviously reached out to me around the ambassador program. We ended up having a coffee and speaking about kind of the potential of you becoming one, and the value you add from both sides in that. But for anyone that's listening that isn't an ambassador already and is looking to become one, like, how have you found being an ambassador? How's it helped you kind of promote obviously the Ignition podcast, and what would your advice be to anyone that's potentially interested in becoming one?
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, thank you for that meeting at Starbucks, because it really was, it was cool. It was nice to sort of experience again from someone that knows what they're talking about, what is going on.
Yeah.
So being an ambassador, I think it's been fantastic. I've met so many cool people. It's, again, even though they're maybe 2 or 3 years younger than me, again, they're going through it, and on the side of like figuring out like what it's leaving school, and what it's like leaving and going into work. I've learned so much from them. Like, they've taught me so much about what they're doing, what they're going through. In terms of promoting my own stuff, you guys host some amazing live streams. You do a lot of work, I think, at festivals, do a lot of work at career fairs. And I've seen, friends I've made from the ambassadorship go off and, promote their own stuff, promote their business and promote their company. So there is definitely a platform in being in a not going to uni ambassador to help you promote your own career as well. Like, and also this podcast as well. If I wasn't an ambassador, I wouldn't be talking to you. And I think it's great because you're giving so many people the opportunity to, tell their story and help people as well.
Yeah, amazing. So I guess to kind of summarize everything then, you're still young, so I don't want to say your younger self, because that's probably insulting you slightly. But what would you tell someone like kind of going through the ranks right now and is looking at you and kind of aspiring to be kind of on a similar pathway? What would you kind of tell that younger person, and from the lessons that you've learned, and can apply it to, I guess, real life now?
Yeah, I think before I do, I'd like to hear yours, if that's okay. Just before I'm happy for me to go. I know you can go after, but I'd be interested to hear yours.
What would I tell my younger self? You know what? I think biggest one's to not overthink everything, because I think when you're in that position, when you're leaving school and if you have left school, you might go on to do work from 16, or you might stay on at sixth form, whatever you decide to do. I think we all overthink in some sort of way around kind of, relate to what we said earlier. Am I on the right path to where I need to be? Am I learning the right things? Am I surrounded by the right people? Like, what can I control and what can't I control? And that's the biggest thing around like growing, is that you need to not be so harsh on yourself, but also be accountable for the stuff that you are doing. So that'd be my first one. Second one is that, and I think we're definitely going into a career model now where you don't have to stay in the same career for your whole life. And that's been something that's been a thing for however many decades, or even maybe, well, not quite a century, but decades, is that people leave school, they do one job and they stay in that job until they retire. Like, that's not going to happen anymore, that's for sure. And how careers are changing is obviously becoming like a skills-based approach and learning skills that you can apply to different industries, and no one's going to have the same career anymore. So I would say that brings a lot of pressure away from everyone, I think, because now we're switching to a model where you can learn the skills that you need to in one industry that will apply to a next. So just like becoming someone that has like a whole list of skills that is valuable to other people from a networking perspective, but then also companies and businesses that might want to hire you for X, Y, and Z. Or if you are creating your own business, obviously you are going to have those different traits that's going to be attractive to whoever. So I would say, yeah, continue upskilling, don't overthink things, and just go with the flow, probably.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, to be honest, I'd probably challenge the overthinking thing. I think the more you think, obviously there's a way to manage it, but obviously it's quite hard to think, wait, going down a rabbit hole is different to thinking about all possibilities and going down that. But I think the advice I'd give to my youngest or a younger person is, just chase your passion relentlessly. You're young, you're 16, 17, I don't know, 14, whoever, like you're in your teens, like I was very fortunate. My parents are still here to support me, and I understand that some people do have to get a job straight after school because they can't sustain. Their parents aren't getting a government bursary for looking after them anymore. Maybe their parents need to work because they can't afford the house. That cost of living is going up and up. But if you can and you're able to, just chase your passion, just go for it, because you can get to 20 and start again. But you've just taken 4 years of your life learning so much. But to your point of upskilling yourself, learn what you want to learn, do what you want to do for 4 or 5 years. And if you've not got anywhere, great, because you've learned so much along the way. But if you have, you might, in 5 years, you might have started a business, you might have climbed a career ladder, you might be a senior manager of someone. 5 years is a lot of time in a profession to do anything. So I would just say chase what you want to chase. Don't worry about risk, because you're young and it ain't gonna matter. It's not gonna matter when you get to 20, 21, 22, because you would have learned a hell of a lot more than the person that went school, university, job. I'm now on 30, 40, 50,000 pounds worth of debt